strange thing is that Roosevelt has always been hailed as, I think he can.
And we're rolling.
Okay, you're going.
Looking back at what happened at that time and the settlement of the strike and the aftermath of it, it has been my feeling and it's been my theory that what happened was that Roosevelt, who had gotten to know those who I call textile barons, like the Comer family, the Bibb people, the ones who ran the big textile mill chains in this end of the country, that when he had talked with a committee that they had formed and had the assurance that they would not blacklist anybody and that they would bargain with the union, that he took them at their word. And it has been my opinion that he was double-crossed. He not only was double-crossed, but because he believed in them, he was able to persuade Norman and the trade union people that the thing to do was to go back, to call it off. I think he also knew that they were on the edge of the precipice with their strike and that this was the right time. And that because they did what they did, that he then pushed for getting the Wagner Act, for getting the collective bargaining laws through, for getting all of the other things that I call part of the New Deal that dealt with labor relations, because he came to the conclusion that you can't trust them to give their word. You've got to put it in a law so that they have to comply with it. And that's been my theory all these years gone by. And it was fortified to some extent by the fact that in the organization called the Southern Conference for Human Welfare that Eleanor Roosevelt was in, that in a number of the conversations that I had dealing with the textile strike, I got the same impression that she felt that the top man in the United States, on whom the union people said, if he says call it off, if he says we've got an understanding, and on whom they relied, that he had been double-crossed, that they had said something that they did not intend to do when they said it, and then they didn't keep their word. And I've held that theory for a long time, and I think that a lot of the New Deal legislation that dealt with workers' problems and workers' rights were the outcome of the experience that Roosevelt had. Because prior to that time, I don't know of any experience that he had of a situation like this where he had involved himself to the extent of being a mediator, really, between two warring factions.
Good. Okay, now, is there anything that...
To the Workman's Circle. He ran one of those little grocery stores there, too. Mr. Bass did something that he's the only one that I've known that's done it, much less a Workman's Circle member. He raised rabbits. He raised prize rabbits. He used to show them off in shows. Why did I just think of it? When you said show the places, I remember he had this little place. Here comes the strike. He's a poor guy just making a living in this poor community in these little grocery stores. And I remember he says, I'll give some food too. And then he talks to me right at the inception of our figuring on the food. He says, you know, stuff in the store costs me money. He says, I haven't got that kind of money. But he said, I got rabbits. And he says, rabbits, you know how they do. They have rabbits and rabbits and rabbits. He says, I can give them all the rabbit meat they want. We had rabbit meat. They had rabbit meat, all that you want during the course of that strike. That's what made me think of it when you said we'd go out there. I had completely forgotten about it.
Okay.
It's an amazing, amazing episode.
Great. Okay.
I'll have to do this if, of course, a year or 2 years later they were beginning to call some of them back. They figured they'd starved them out enough. Anyway, he became Secretary Treasury of the Union. He and his father began to be active in it. One bright day, a group of men come to his place. They knock at the door. They want to talk to him. He goes down to the car. They grab him. They put him in the car. They drive him out on a country road. They beat him up. He knows who they are. One of them is an insurance man who deals with the Callaway Mills. One of them is a owner of a general store there that's right where the Callaway Mills are, and a lot of the people trade with him. One of them is one of the supervisors at the Callaway Mill, and I forget what the other one was. It had something to do with the mills. And they beat the hell out of him. They throw him out of the car. And he finally gets back home. When he gets back home, he talks with his father, and his father is one of those tough Georgia crackers who says, by God, they can't do it. We're going to go down and we're going to swear out a warrant against them. If we can't do that, we're going before the grand jury. And his father says, we're going to get our guns, and if they're going to do like that, we're going to do like that. So sure enough, they go down to the courthouse. I don't remember now whether it was the sheriff or whether it was the justice of peace that they tried to swear a warrant out against him, but they would not swear the warrant out when they heard who he wanted to swear it out against. And the grand jury was going to meet very shortly. So they said you have to appear before the grand jury. If the grand jury finds there's reason to believe that they did this, they will issue an indictment. In the meantime, they come up to Atlanta. They talk to George Googe. George Googe puts them in touch with me. And I listen to them, and I ask them, what about the sheriff? Oh, we've known him for years. He's a good man. He's all right. Well, how is he with the Callaways? Oh, I don't think he'd line up with them. I don't think he'd side with them. I think he'd be all right. I said, did he tell you when the grand jury would meet? Yeah, he told us when they would meet. He told us to see the district attorney. They didn't call it the district attorney, though, the prosecuting attorney. And he would arrange for us to appear before the grand jury. I said, okay. I said, what about the guns? They said, oh, yeah, the father was there. He said he had the permit for a gun, and the son was going to get a permit for a gun so he could carry it. Okay. So I said, well, if you can trust them, go down and see the grand jury, and then let me know what happens. I get a call. I believe it was the mother. I don't think it was either the father or the son. They had gone down to the grand jury, and when they got to the courthouse, before they went into the grand jury, the sheriff arrested them on a law in Georgia which says that you cannot carry a gun in and about the courthouse. The only one that can is the sheriff. After they put him under arrest, then they ushered him into the grand jury room. When they ushered him into the grand jury room and they look around, there are some supervisors from Callaway. There are some business people that belong to the Kiwanis, Rotarian, whatever it is with the Callaway people. And he spends his time arguing with them that he knows that these are the people did it. And they keep telling him they couldn't have been. These are good people. They're nice people. They're outstanding citizens. It can't be. Anyway, So they charge him with carrying guns in and about the courthouse. They charge him with not having a permit for the gun. And I think that there was one other charge against the son and the father. So when is the case going to be set? They didn't know. I called the prosecuting attorney. He told me. We arranged to go down. In the meantime, I say to him, how come? You told me you had a permit, and here they're charging it. They said, look, here it is. And he shows me the receipt where he'd gotten paid for it and gotten and so on. So I wait till it's time for the case to come up. The case is due to come up during the course of the day. I go down there, I see him. I talk to the prosecuting attorney. I try to get him to drop it. He won't drop it. Finally, I said, well, we'll talk with the judge. Meantime, I go down to the probate court where you get your license for it. And I asked the lady, I said, where have you got entered this man's license? Oh, she says, we're running behind on entering from our receipt book into our list of permit books. And she said, I don't remember if I've listed his or not, but she said, I got the receipt book. I said, would you show it to me? And sure enough, there it was. So they called the case. We go upstairs. Want to know whether it should be a jury trial or a judge trial. I said, well, let's try a jury trial, because I was afraid of the judge. I said, now, which ones are we going to charge? How are we going to do it? Well, the prosecuting attorney said, I'll tell you what, we got 6 cases here. It means we've got to try 6 separate cases. Is there any way we can consolidate them or what? I said, I'll make you a proposition. If you let me pick the case to try first, if I win it, then you turn us loose on everything, not guilty. If I lose it, then we're guilty on the rest of them. Oh, sure. He figured, why not? I'm going to beat him anyway. And guilty one, I got him and don't have to try him all. I said, okay, now let's try the one on the permit for the son. And my dice are loaded. Okay, I put him on the stand. Meantime, I say, send down for the probate court record keeper, the clerk, have the clerk bring up all the records that deal with permits, including the permit book. I didn't mention the receipt book. Sure enough, they send word up, just let us know in whatever time she'll come up. I put him on. Shows the receipt. We'd already picked the jury. I tried to pick people that didn't work for Callaway. Show the receipt to the judge, show it to the DA, and his eyes pop. I said, please send down for the probate court. By that time, he wants to get the book because he knows he didn't see it in the book. Up she comes, sworn in. Do you keep records? Yeah, and we go through the routine. How do you do it? Receipt first, from the receipt to the book. Let's see your receipt book. Bang. Let's take a look at the permit book. Not there. Did he have a permit? Sure did. Your Honor, I move to dismiss. The evidence shows he did. He turns to the prosecuting attorney. He says, Your Honor, it was not listed in the permit book, and that's the reason why we had the warrant issue against him. And if it wasn't in the permit book, judge says, when he got the receipt and he paid the fee, why he had the permit, the case dismissed. I said, now, to the man, I can't remember his name. I said, now let's dismiss the other cases. We're not through. He says we got to write up the orders. I tell Henry George, I said, now you get the hell out of here in a hurry. And his father was there with him. I said, you both get out of here. Go down the road. When you go down the road, stop at a certain place. It was some 5-6 miles out of the county. and I'll meet you there. And the reason I said that was because when he had to dismiss the case, so the sheriff was standing there, and he went over and he talked to the sheriff. And while I couldn't read his lips, the sheriff was shaking his head. I said, they're concocting something here. I smell it. That's what you call intuition. Sure enough, we wrote them up and everything else. While we're doing it, out of the corner of my eye, I see the sheriff head down. I go to the window while the prosecuting attorney is writing, and I see he's going around real fast with a couple of deputies trying to find where the hell my man is. Can't find him. He comes back up. We sign the stuff up. I go downstairs. When I go downstairs, the sheriff has already had a couple of the deputies down there to follow me. Out of the corner of my eye, I see he's coming up behind them. I go to my car. I get in my car. So I decide, well, I'm not going to get on the highway right now. I'm going to head over like I was going over to the house where this man's father lived, because by that time we had already brought him up to Atlanta and got him a job with the power company. I look in my rear view mirror, they're following me. I ride down the street to his father's house. They're behind me. They park back a piece. I don't get out of the car. I start back up again. I ride around, and I'm watching the mirror. They're following me. I get on the highway. I start heading out, and they're following me out of the highway. Now, what they intended to do, I don't know, except that I think they would have found another reason to have arrested him and charged him with something else. I met them down the road. I told them what they did, and I said to George, I said, it's a good thing you people left. Otherwise, we'd be trying some more cases down here.
And that meant that they had to move out of the county then?
He moved out of the county completely. His father stayed on. I think his father lost the job at the Callaway Mill, as I remember, and he wasn't bad at little carpentry work, so he did some carpentry work.
That's what it said.
Okay.
Okay, well...
Talk to...
The day they closed the mill?
Yeah, if it strikes me like a Wednesday evening or a Thursday evening. I know it was $2 per bag for us to get our payday. We had to come out, and he told us when we come out that until they got it completely settled, get the people reconciled without getting anybody hurt, we'd have to stay off of the job till it was done. So we all agreed, because there was many, many more that didn't want the strike than wanted it. A lot more didn't want it. But when we went to work, we'd go in at the front gate, and we had a little path to go across from the main office over into the mill yard, because they couldn't open that main gate because them strikers would go in there. Mm-hmm. So we'd go through that walkway every night and every morning to do our jobs, because they could keep them off of that, but they couldn't keep them out of this gangway. So that's the way we went. And that morning, before they closed the mill down, most everybody was there at 6 o'clock, and we went in. And then Jenny Simpkins, Jim, well, she come over there. He was our second man, Jim Simpkins was. She come in there and started up that ramp, and the strikers grabbed her, and the guards got her by the waist, and they had her by the feet, and they like pulled her into. She's in an invalid this day, and I believe she's still living. I haven't seen her here to Jimmy in a good while. She lived at the corner of Pearl Street and Kirkwood. She owned that home there. And I don't know, she had one son, and I don't know if she's still living with him.
She's not. I remember. I know you're talking about now.
You do? Well, She's the woman, and they injured her, and she's crippled the rest of her body. But we all come out, and they tried to kill a good many of them as they come out the gate there, but there was not no bad injuries. But they wanted to turn over a lot of cars. They tried to turn my car over, but they didn't turn it over. And they tried to hurt everybody they could, so when we got out of there and come home, we didn't go back till they notified us that we could go back on our jobs. And I never did want to be on none of the strike as long as I live.
Rough.
I don't want no part of it. It's rough.
But you're talking about Jenny's, the guards was trying to pull her in, and the strikers were trying to pull her out.
Two of the guards had her by the arm and shoulders, and these men had her by the legs, and they was pulling against one another, and they injured that woman very, very seriously. They had to put her in the hospital. And that evening was the very evening that the main head man of the Fulton Bag Cotton Mill broadcasted that it was going to shut down permanently for everybody to throw their machines off and come out quietly. And that's what we did. When they told us, it was between 5 and 6 o'clock, when they told us to close our machine and walk out of there, but come out quietly and peaceably and not have no disturbance whatsoever. And we shut our machines down, and they let us stay in there long enough to clean the machines up, and we come out of there. But it was rough when we got out. Lord, they wanted to fight, they wanted to do everything.
So you feared for your life, huh?
Well, you just hated to go out there on that sidewalk. It was so ugly. You just didn't want to get out there on that sidewalk. But you know you had to come out there because they was going to close the whole thing down. And they closed it down too. But I was glad that there wasn't no killing. But I just knew there would be.
And these were all people that you knew?
Yeah. Lots and lots that I worked with that I didn't want to see hurt. I didn't want to get hurt myself. And I didn't want to see none of them men and women hurt. But honey, they was ready to do it. Don't you think they would? They were determined to show us that they could take that mill and do what they wanted to do. But we won out. They didn't, because we stayed away from there. And it was down, I think, 2 weeks before they ever decided to leave there and let us alone and open the mill back up. I don't know that.
So what was it like when you came back to work?
Well, just like I first started. It was very quiet. Everybody was satisfied and happy that they was going to go back to their job. And they all was very happy over it. And we worked every day. That's what I think about young people today. They don't want to go to work till they get top notch, but yet they don't know the job. But we started at $10 a week and loved it. And they ain't none of them to do that now. They won't start at no $10 a week. If they can't get top pay, they won't work. They try to get the welfare people. And I don't love to beg. No, I don't love to beg. I love to work for what I get.
So that $10 was enough to...
Well, back then, I'm going to tell you, Joyce, back then, $10 is as much as $50 now. Back then, you could buy, with $10, what you give $50 now. But, Lord, I'm telling you, these children ought to live the life I lived. They wouldn't want, they sure wouldn't want to go through what I've been through. 88 years, 84 years.
But you got through it.
Yeah, and live, tell the story. Sometime I'm gonna write a book of my life, Joyce.
Well, I think you ought to start.
I'm gonna write a book of my life. How mean I was and how hard I worked. Yeah,
I'd be glad to help you.
I sure am. I enjoyed it. But I don't know, back then, the teenagers, they enjoyed one another, and they'd have their parties, and there was no fussing and no disorderly. And the neighbors liked you, and you got along good in the neighborhood. Joyce, I'm sorry they build them houses up there now. Ain't I ugly?
No, no.
Yeah, I am.
I know you've been having a lot of trouble.
I am sorry that if I could have stopped that, if I know now what I know now, I said, y'all can't buy this and build this. We don't need them houses here because you ain't put good people in them.
Well,
I'm telling you. And another thing, I appreciate good friends and neighbors, and I want to be friend to everybody. And I want to be treated like I want to treat everybody else. But I don't know, they don't want to cooperate. They want to do what they want to do and not do right.
Well,
So,
talking about cooperation, what happened between the strikers and non-strikers after it was over?
well, when the strike was over with and the mill was closed down and everybody at home, well, the head of the strike, union strikers, met out there. And they told them that they was not going to have a union in that mill because all of the foremen and all agreed not to have no strike, no union there in that mill. And so they left, and they never did come back out there and try no more union in that mill because everybody is growed up there like myself, was raised there in that mill, and we didn't want to see that mill go up. So they agreed that there wouldn't be no more union at Fulton Beck Cotton Mill, and they was not. Nobody else ever come out there and wanted to start a union in that mill. It was real peaceful.
But were people able to go back to being friends and co-workers?
Yes, sir. Just like the strike hadn't never been pulled off.
Is that right?
They were just as friendly, and everybody tried to help one another, and they were just as friendly as they could be after that strike. And the job run good. We didn't have a bit of trouble with our work. It really run good. And you enjoyed it.
What her job was?
Well, what was your job in the mill?
The first job I had in Fulton Beck Cotton Mill was filling batteries, weave cloth. Well, I did that about 2.5 years, and the next job I had was spooling in the spool room.
And when did you start? What year?
Well, I'm 84, just say 84. And I started when I was 16 years old. Now count back.
I'm bad at arithmetic.
Well, I am too.
Let's see, 16 from 84.
Well, that's how old I was. When I went to Fulton Beck now, I worked a year in exposition. I was 15 then. But when I went to work in Fulton Beck, I was 16 years old because I had to take the family Bible and prove I was 16 years old before they give me a job.
It must have been after the child labor laws or something.
Well, I don't know. They didn't let me do it.
Yeah.
So then I spooled till I got tired of that. I transferred there to the old mill, and I run warpers, which made the beams to make the cloth. I run that for about 5 years at night, 3 to 11. And I creel warpers. And I got tired of that, and I went back to the weed shop and filled batteries. And then they wanted me in the twine room, and I went from the weed shop to the twine room and run them rewinders in the twine room. And that was where I was at when the strike come off. But when I went back, Joyce went back to the weed shop to fill batteries in the old mill.
You like filling them batteries, huh?
Yeah, yeah. I'd go out there and tell Mr. Florence I didn't want spools or run warpers. I wanted to fill batteries. He said, well, so-and-so transfer to wherever you need her, put her fill batteries. And I'd fill in the old mill, in new mill, They pulled me to the old mill, and I'd go to the basement in the old mill and run that lino, fill them lino batteries. I got a privilege of going anywhere. The only thing I regret, I should have went to the card room, and I'd had it all made then. But I didn't. I don't know. I just shunned off from the card room. I didn't much care about the card room. I loved the schoolroom, the spinning room, and I didn't want to spin, because I spent a year at the exposition, and I didn't want to do that anymore.